Eradicate, I usually think pests.
I mean, you hear about eradicate poverty. Does that mean you're going to kill all the poor people?
To them, that is them.
But they're
right?
wrong. Yeah, and you can't convince someone they're wrong by telling them they're right. That's gay.
I don't think it's going to yield good benefit or desired results if you say things are gay in a derogatory way. Because
I think it's just kind of gay.
But even if an alien...
I think this whole conversation
But imagine an alien... I would disagree. I think it would cause a lot of people to check out, saying something like the attention
I don't think
online.
I'm saying any crazy stuff. I think I'm saying very reasonable, true stuff.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to watch our main man, Smooth Mickey, get confronted on his language. This one builds up slowly from a little bit of tone policing to a little bit of language policing, till eventually they're just trying to call Michael out on his use of a certain word, which doesn't go very well for them. And now onto the first bit, where Michael begins the triggering process by talking about a speech that he gave, where he said that we need to eradicate transgenderism.
So you were doing something similar with Ben, where you would go to colleges and do debates. What were some of the craziest experiences that you've seen?
I had one last night, actually. I was at Vanderbilt here, a local speech. Go in, nice packed auditorium, everyone looks good. I start to give my speech, and out pop these pro-transgender activists. They snuck in. They looked fine, but I don't know. They took their masks off, and they jump up. They all have signs. And the irony was, I was there to give a speech on settler colonialism. So I was actually kind of taken aback. And they were screaming something I couldn't quite tell. And I said, hold on, wait, who are you? And they said, we're the transgender people. And I said, well, it's always the pro-trans crowd. They are by far the craziest protesters I'd ever, the most violent, the most likely to threaten to kill you and everyone you know. And I mean, it's not even close. There's no other issue. Abortion, immigration, colonialism, and nothing touches the trans issue. And so I said, okay, well, why are you protesting me? And it was because of a speech I gave at CPAC, the big conservative conference back in February or March, where I said that for the good of society, and especially for the good of the confused people who fall and prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely, the whole preposterous ideology at every level. Those were the exact words, because I've seen them written in print a lot now. I was accused of calling for genocide. I said, hold on. How do you get that? Rolling Stone accused me of that. Huffington Post accused me of that. Other outlet, Daily Beast, I think. And I said I called for the eradication of an ideology from public life. I didn't call for killing people. Where'd you get that? I said, in fact, I prefaced my statement with, for the good, especially of these people who identify as transgender, we got to get rid of this crazy idea. And so eventually all of those libelous outlets had to change their headlines.
I think eradicate is probably a heavy word to use. So I think eradicate, I usually think pests, or I think something in the house like ants. You have an ant calling you, eradicate the ants. Maybe eradicate was too strong of a word.
But you were talking about an ideology, and people thought you were talking about a population.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about eradicate poverty. Does that mean you're going to kill all the poor people? We're going to eradicate Nazism. Does that mean you're going to nuke Germany? I don't think so. Eradicate comes from radix, the Latin word radix means root. You can pull it out by the root, which is precisely what I was saying. I don't believe that it's a good idea to merely say, all right, we need to stop transing the 8-year-olds. We need to wait until they turn 9. The 8 is too young, but 18 or whatever, that's fine. No, either a man can become a woman or he can't. And if a man can become a woman and vice versa, then we should trans the kids. If you can really be born in the wrong body, then for sure we should encourage gender affirming care or whatever else they call it. But if you can't, and we know that you can't, we know that a man can't really be a woman and vice versa, then we shouldn't tolerate it for anyone. It's not going to help anybody. In fact, the largest data set on this ever published just came out of the UK not long ago, and it showed that contrary to popular propaganda, the transgender transition does not alleviate any of the conditions of gender dysphoria. They looked at anxiety, suicidality, depression. They all remain the same, post-hormonal and post-surgical transition. And in one case, in the case of anxiety, it got worse. So I just looked at that in a sober way, and I said, oh, this ideology, which is fairly novel, poses a false view of human nature. It says that your body has nothing to do with who you really are. And so it's harming everyone, it's harming society, and it's harming the individuals who believe in it. So we got to get rid of it.
Okay, so pretty easy one to understand there. I mean, we need to eradicate the false idea of transgenderism and not the people, obviously, because men can't be women and vice versa, and it has detrimental effects on the culture and also the souls that fall victim to this. But maybe not so easy to understand for some. And just for a little bit of context, guys, let me give you a bit of content creator insight about this kind of podcast that actually sets the stage pretty well for the rest of the video. These guys have a very specific business model, which is that their podcast, the Iced Coffee Hour, is meant to be this conversational middle ground type thing where they have different people from different walks of life and worldviews, and they toe a politically correct line, and they don't have many out there opinions, so that they can basically appeal to as big an audience as they possibly can. And there are a lot of very mainstream podcasts that have this exact same approach, and they do very well. And I am not hating at all. This is a really smart business strategy, and you can make a lot of money doing it. And I mean, Graham is a business, finance, investment guy, and I don't really know anything about the other one, but I mean, I would imagine they're some sort of libertarians, and they're not really political guys. Like I said, their plan is to attract as wide an audience as they possibly can and not really step out of line, and this way they can get a lot of views, a lot of sponsorships, and they have the ability to sell products and whatever else they'd like to do. But in contrast, when you listen to Michael Knowles or the reality-based podcast, for example, which you can find on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, I can talk to people from all different political ideologies, but I make no bones of the fact that I am a based Chad right-wing extremist, which means I, for one, don't get many sponsors, but at least it means I don't have to answer to anybody or appease anybody's feelings. And I would rather do that any day. But one company that does have the balls to sponsor Rattlesnake TV and make this content possible is our dear truth-loving friends at Ground News, who you should definitely check out using this QR code. Ground News is a startup that keeps you armed and dangerous with tens and thousands of sources from around the world that have many different fantastic features. Just today I was scrolling through and I came across this story about pride marchers facing off with pro-Palestine protesters in Philadelphia after they block the parade route, which I found pretty hilarious because the pride people often tend to think that the Palestinians and them are in the same fight. Apparently not. And we can see the coverage details here, guys, on the side, which is total news sources covering it. There's 11 sources. And down below, you can see the bias distribution, which shows that 0% of this is being covered by the left. We can also see the factuality and how high these sources rank, not very high for this one. And we can also see the ownership, how many of them are independent news sources, how many of them are giant corporations. So guys, all you need to do is scan that QR code or go to ground.news/rattlesnake. That's ground.news/rattlesnake. The links will all be below, pinned at the top of the comments and in the description. And sign up today, guys, because Ground News is offering Rattlesnake TV watchers a massive 40% off the Vantage plan, which is what I use. And guys, when you sign up for Ground News using my links, don't forget that you're not only supporting a great startup, you're also supporting the channel directly. Let's get back to the video. So just to wrap that one up really quickly, guys. So in a business sense, I totally respect what these guys do. Great with finance, great with investing, and I would love to get some advice on my portfolio. But in terms of politics, these guys are completely useless. Michael Knowles, however, is tremendously effective when it comes to politics. And he does a great job of gracefully bringing more and more people over to the side of based Chad right-wing extremism. And now on to the next part, where they try to really start tone policing and language policing Smooth Mickey. And in true fashion, he gives an absolutely resounding argument for truth. And listen closely, guys, because these ideas are genuinely worth noting down and keeping in your own arsenal so that you're armed and dangerous at all of those dinner parties. But before we get there, guys, if you don't mind quickly smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel, that would be absolutely amazing. Let's get to it.
I guess I would just broadly say I would tell people the truth. And you get the truth a lot of different places. You know, you get the truth from talking to your friends. You get the truth from talking to your family. You get the truth from talking to a psychotherapist. You get the truth from talking to a priest. You get the truth from talking to your guidance counselor. I don't know. But what we have now is a regime that insists to all of those people that if they do not tell a lie, they will be punished. The parents, the teachers, the psychotherapists, they'll lose their accreditation, they'll lose their license. And so I would not only encourage the culture to change, I would also change the law back to what it had always been.
What do you think the harm is to society in indulging in that? Because my belief tends to be if it doesn't affect me and it makes someone happy, I don't really care. If someone wants to wear a suit every day, it doesn't impact me whatsoever. If they want to wear a dress every day or dress, one gender, it doesn't affect me. So it's not really something that, I'm all for whatever makes people happy. How do you believe that is a detriment to society?
Well, society is not just about you, right? Society is about all of us.
Correct.
So even your premise, which is that leave me alone, you do what you want to do, I do what I want to do, we have nothing to do with each other, that is the negation of society, right? But furthermore, the premises are off because you say, well, if it makes someone happy, it doesn't make them happy. Happiness is not merely a subjective question. The anorexic might think that starving herself makes her happy. She'll tell you that, but it doesn't. That is not conducive to human flourishing. So that would be the first issue. The second issue then is the real harm felt by other people. I don't know, when big husky Hank walks into your little girl's bathroom, that's a problem. That damages her. It's scandalous. It's traumatic, and it can lead to sexual assault. And it has. This is what got Glenn Youngkin elected in Virginia. The Loudoun County schools had a transgender bathroom policy, and so some very confused young man went into a girl's bathroom and raped a girl. And what happened? What did the school do? They covered it up. Why? Because it was politically dangerous to touch the trans issue. So what did they do? They sent the kid to another school. And what did he do? He did it again. And what did they do? They covered it up again. So, for the victims of those people who were in harm's way because of trans bathroom policies directly, that would be a harm to society. The libertarian view that you've just articulated, which is, well, leave me alone. You do you, I do me. No one really believes that. You might not care about politics, but politics cares about you. You might not care about society. Society cares about you. We are not free-floating atoms in outer space. Man is a political creature. We are born not primarily with rights and entitlement, but primarily with duty and obligations. You didn't choose your life. You didn't choose how you came into the world. You're not going to choose, hopefully, how you leave the world. And so we need to recognize that we do all live together. We have to figure out how to live together, and we can live together either in accordance with truth that we can all perceive using our reason and objective reality, or we can live according to some kooky narrative of lies that we're constantly rewriting, where no one ever knows what everyone accepts and where the ground is basically quicksand.
So if you think the people that believe the opposite of what you believe are really suffering, do you think that saying something like they subscribe to a kooky narrative of lies is something that's going to flip a switch in their head and think, oh, okay, maybe Michael's right and I can change my ideology? Or do you think that it puts them into a position defending their ego or their idea of who they are that maybe it wouldn't be productive to defend in the first place? Because I think if you're really trying to convince the other side, coming at it from an angle of being I understand your plight, I understand the way that you suffer, and I understand your argument entirely, and I respect you for having said opinions, right? But I have my own, and these are what they are, rather than from a more aggressive angle, because I see these kind of these debate, aggressive undertones, which I see on everybody, right? The left and the right, 100%. But I do wonder, to bring people into the center in some capacity, right? It is better, I feel to not be super aggressive and say that the other person's agenda and narrative is just ideologically inferior, to a supreme degree, right? Especially something that so many people subscribe to.
Yeah, I don't think so. It depends on the context. So you're saying in these debate scenarios, sometimes people get aggressive. Yeah, that's a debate. A debate is not when you're sitting with a loved one trying to persuade them of something. A debate is when you and an opponent are standing on stage. You both have fixed views. You will not convince the other person. That's not your job. You're not allowed to convince the other person. They are there to defend their view. You are there to defend the other view. You are trying to persuade the audience. And so the way to persuade the audience, the people kind of in the middle, I think is through clarity. I think always clarity is charity, but especially during a time of debate. Now, if I were speaking to a trans-identifying person, as I have many times, I would speak very differently. There I'm not having a public debate. There I'm trying to figure out, okay, what has led you to this error? So that I can go in and correct that error. For different people, it's going to be different things. For some people, it might be they fell down a Tumblr rabbit hole on the internet. I talked to one trans detransitioner who did that. For someone else, it might be a childhood problem or a sexual trauma that they'd had. That's often the case. For some, it might be an undiagnosed medical condition like autism. I talked to a girl who nearly transitioned because her doctors told her that she was, or other doctors had told her that she was the opposite sex. And then fortunately, her doctor and her family and her priest said, no, that's not how reality works. And they found out she had undiagnosed autism, and now she feels a lot better. So it depends on who you're talking to.
But even calling it necessarily an error is kind of attacking somebody's belief of who they are, their identity. And I think like
no, it's attacking their belief
of who they are, their identity, right? Saying that like your entire identity is an error because to them it's their identity,
that they are in
right?
error about their identity. That's true, but it's not attacking their true identity. It's not attacking them. I guess that's the distinction.
But to them that is them.
But they're
right?
wrong. Yeah, and you can't convince someone they're wrong by telling them they're right.
Right, of course not. But I'm just saying to call something an error when someone
what should we call it?
A situation, maybe. I don't know.
What kind of situation?
I guess it could be like attacking someone's religion, where like that's what they believe.
I think that it's, if anything, it's going to ramp up their side of the argument. It's going to make them angry and defending their position even more. I don't think it's going to spur actual change.
If I felt that there was something really wrong or bigoted or mean-spirited or something about my statement that men and women are different, which everyone everywhere has believed for all of history until 5 minutes ago, then I might soft pedal it. So I have nothing but love and charity for them. And part of that charity is telling them honestly what I think. I mean, you just mentioned that it's sort of like attacking someone's religion.
Uh-huh.
It's not sort of. It's exactly like attacking someone's religion. They have a belief about human nature, how man relates to the world, to himself, how the body relates to the soul, that is fundamentally wrong. The Biotapestry, one of the most famous pieces of Western art, says he was comforting them, because to comfort is to give strength. And I think the way you give strength is by telling people the truth and putting them on a path that will be conducive to their flourishing and happiness. That's the traditional view. The traditional view in our civilization is the truth sets you free and lies will deceive you and lead to death. The way the modern libs talk about it is that they want you to believe that lies will set you free. Oh, just let them live in their lies. Who cares? It doesn't harm you. It doesn't hurt your bottom line. Just it makes them happy. That the truth can be so harsh and cruel and actually harm people. It's a total inversion of reality.
The truth will set you free and lies will enslave you. Yes, Smooth Mickey. Yes. Totally, I completely second that notion. And this is such a problem in today's culture. I mean, we allow for so much deception, and this is very dangerous because there's no shortage of people out there who are happy to use this deception for their political ends. You give them an inch and they take a mile, and they just keep taking and taking and taking and taking until you're sitting there like, hold on a second. What do you mean we're having a parade on my street in front of my children where we celebrate people who have a sexual fetish where they dress up like dogs? You see, on a broader scale, it's not our job as political commentators, social commentators, or society as a whole for that matter, to coddle people's feelings. It's our job to aim toward the truth. And if you do try and just worry about people's feelings all the time, then you will quite simply end up saying nothing, because anything worth saying in this discussion is always going to offend somebody. And Michael pretty much nailed it when he said in your personal life, when you encounter people who have vastly different worldviews than you can treat them with dignity and respect, and you can even be friends with them. But when it comes to the realm of ideas and debate and rhetoric and all of this, it is not our job before we say something to think who might get offended by this and how. No, it's our job to say what's true and to also try and maintain a level of decorum. We want to be personable and we want to be able to bring people over to our side with relatable and convincing arguments. However, the message itself can't be diluted. And that's what a lot of conservatives get wrong, in my opinion. And now on to the next bit where Michael says the word gay in a way that is not celebrating homosexuality, and the boys aren't happy about it.
Gay! Brian, well, he's probably more correct than them on some like basic things. Brian said he didn't want to get married. So you don't want to get married. That's gay. You know, I'm making this accusation a lot now.
Why do you keep using that term?
I'm like that guy.
That's a not very inclusive term. You know that.
It's very inclusive. There are a lot of gay guys.
Gay?
So I'm including them.
Why can't you just say you disagree?
Because I disagree,
like,
but specifically I disagree because that view is gay.
Right, but okay, but the problem that I have with calling something...
Why are you gay?
Why are you gay? You are gay.
Well,
you are gay. Like that guy on the Ghana.
I have a problem, I feel like, with, at least if I'm trying to understand your motive, like your desired outcome of going on these shows and speaking the truth or whatever, your truth, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's going to yield good benefit or desired results if you say things are gay in a derogatory way. Because it's not like someone maybe who's gay is going to hear that and they're going to be like, oh, this guy, he thinks all gay people are bad. Or,
listen,
you know,
I'm an icon of the gay community. You know, I have plenty of friends. Look, I lived in New York. I lived in LA. I went to the gayest university on
what university?
Earth, Yale.
Okay.
So they say 1 in 4, maybe more at Yale, you know. And I have a disproportionate number of homosexually identifying friends and people with variously eccentric views. But, you know, my view is that we shouldn't recommend the LGBT activism. I think that's not a good thing to recommend.
But it's not recommending that. It's just, like I said, if your desired result is to hopefully find a middle ground where you can both agree on something.
No, my desired result is to arrive at the truth. That's my desired result.
But don't you
is it for yourself or to help other people arrive at the truth?
For everybody.
But if you're trying to help other people arrive at the truth, calling something gay in a bad way in front of another gay person, I think it's
really good. I think it's really good to do because
I think people, they recoil when you attack at like
maybe you recoil. I don't think a lot of other people.
I think a lot
of people grew up on the playground saying, hey, that shirt's really gay, ha ha ha, and then everybody laughs. I think everybody used this kind of language until 5 minutes ago, and in no way is it mocking or attacking any people who have kind of eccentric sexual desires or anything like that. But I think it's just kind of gay.
Even if it alienates,
I think this whole conversation.
But imagine it alienates.
So they weren't really listening there, but Michael dropped an absolute bar. They said, well, if your desired result is to find middle ground with people, as if everybody is playing this game where they want to find middle ground. And Michael says, no, my desired result is to arrive at the truth.
If your desired result is to hopefully find a middle ground where you can both agree on something,
no, my desired result is to arrive at the truth.
Absolute fire. The truth is not in the middle because the left has completely lost their minds and now they are identifying as animals and they don't know what a woman is and they are sexualizing children. Most people in life, I'm thrilled to be able to find middle ground with them, and that is the aim. But those guys, I have zero desire to find middle ground with them. They are wrong, and the more I concede and the closer I get to their worldview, the more wrong I get. The closer I get to them, the closer I get to bullshit. And I don't like being near bullshit, you see? And you know what else? They have absolutely no desire to reach common ground with me either. They think anybody who is a Christian or who thinks that children shouldn't be drag queens or who supports Donald Trump is a fascist monster.
God bless America. Capitalism wins again.
Capitalism, president. He's a racist, stupid piece of shit. You're a racist,
just ring the
stupid piece of
ring the
off.
And if you do believe that common ground with these people is the most important thing, then let me just ask you this. Over the past few years, as this culture war has gotten more and more crazy, the conservatives have been making such a huge effort to try and open dialogue with liberals. But they don't want to talk and have debate and discussion because it's not within their value structure. We have been trying to find common ground being them eventually coming back to reality, but they have no intention of doing that. And this whole common ground thing has actually caused a lot of conservative organizations and institutions to become more liberal. And you know what it's caused the liberal organizations and institutions to do? To become more liberal. So the question then becomes, how's all this common ground going for us? I mean, why do you think that Michael Knowles' speeches went so viral? Well, I mean, maybe in small part because people were triggered and offended in the articles that were written about it. But for the most part, people watch that because they agree with him. They agree with his rhetoric on transgenderism. Most people hear that and they think, thank God someone has the balls to say it. I, for whatever reason, can't say it because of my job or whatever other reason. But I totally agree with him, and I'm glad someone is out there saying it. And now onto the last part where these guys continue their gay response to Michael Knowles calling things gay.
It alienates 1 or 2% of the audience. Is that worth it?
In this case, I'm using it in a very specific way and intentionally, much as I would use the word eradicate at my CPAC speech with regard to transgender ideology.
So it's
I'm using it
attention.
No, that's what the liberals accused me of, but that's because they have difficulty understanding words. The reason I use the word eradicate there is because I specifically was referring to uprooting an entire ideology, root and branch. And the reason I use gay specifically in this case is one, because it's kind of funny and we've all used it, even though we all politically correctly now pretend that we don't. We're all clutching our pearls. But the other thing, we all pretend that the homosexuals are offended by it. They're not. Homosexuals are outrageous people a lot of the time, and they're men a lot of the time, and they're tough guys. It's like macho men in the Village People. The reason I'm using it specifically here is because gay refers to an entire view of the sexual ethic. A view of the sexual ethic that views men and women as indiscernible and substitutable for one another, and a view of the sexual ethic that is ultimately sterile, that separates means from ends. And so I'm doing that very intentionally.
You're doing using the esoteric way, right?
But I don't think that's so esoteric. I think it's playing on the proper meaning of the word, and it's showing people the issue from a perspective that has been kept from them.
But when you just say the word gay, without any context behind it, people are not going to put that meaning the way that you meant it. They're not going to do all the background thinking of, oh, he means it like this, and if you extrapolate to this.
But when I use a word that everyone used until 5 minutes ago, that now the politically correct censors won't let us use, when I use that word, what I am saying is I will not ascribe to your left-wing censorship regime. And you're right, it might put some people off. It'll at least raise their eyebrows, even if they're not offended. I don't think many people are actually offended by it, but it'll raise their eyebrows, at least at first. But the consequence of that will be that it will start to crack away at the left-wing censorship regime, which uses a cycle of euphemisms to constantly change the words that we're allowed to use for anything.
I would disagree. I think it would cause a lot of people to check out immediately. They would hear you saying something like this and immediately think, oh, it's one of these guys. Anything he says
my speech has a lot of views on it.
Anything you say after that, then you're going to tune out or not take as seriously as saying, I disagree with the concept of marriage because of this. To me, that sounds a lot more eloquent and a lot more sophisticated than saying, oh,
and understanding, which is, I feel like, the number one thing that you need to be if you're trying to persuade other people.
I guess my evidence to the contrary is I've given many long lectures using very dry language on all of these questions, and you've never seen any of them, and none of those clips have ever gone viral.
So then
it's a conversion rate.
It's on those. Not merely for attention. It's so that your message important point is heard by people in a precise and just way.
But then I think it's also, do you want your message to be heard, or do you want it to impact the people in a positive way that you would like to get your message across? Because getting attention and just saying crazy stuff will get crazy attention.
I don't think I'm saying any crazy stuff. I think I'm saying very reasonable, true stuff.
But just taking to the extreme and saying, I'm going to say something that'll get attention, that will do well on social media, versus I'm going to say something, it's not going to get as much attention, but the people who watch it will take my ideas into consideration. It'll make more of an impact than saying something.
I think that my CPAC speech dominated the national discourse for at least a week after I gave it. And it wasn't exclusively my CPAC speech. It was Matt Walsh's What is a Woman movie. It was the work of TERF radical feminists I'm really not taking credit for all of this. But I do think that my speech at CPAC and the positive way that it was received by the American right and a lot of the American middle, and the screeching, crazy reaction that came from the left and the lies that came from the establishment media, helped to expand the window of discourse and helped to move that issue more in our direction. And it's led to laws that have been proscribing the transgender ideology in public life. So I think it was very persuasive, and it did get people's attention. It did. I actually didn't intend for it to get that much attention, but it did. And I think that's a good thing. And yes, the libs are going to accuse me of all sorts of things, genocide or whatever, but it's ridiculous. You might call it aggressive. I think it's the only option.
I'm not saying that I personally find that aggressive. I'm saying in the way that it's received and digested in the people
This is the key. You think the language is just fine. You probably think
I'm not labeling it either way.
You just said you don't think it's aggressive.
I said I'm not I'd probably be more
but
against
it's at least not aggressive. Or you think it is aggressive?
I think it
or you're just not
is
willing
what
to
the
say.
impact is, probably.
No, I'm asking what you think, man.
I think if someone told me that, no, I wouldn't be, super sensitive to it.
And I think basically everyone is like you. And I think that we're all just afraid of offending some hypothetical third party that doesn't really exist. And I think that is how the left controls the whole dialogue, because we're all normal guys. And everyone you talk to, even if they say, I'm a gay guy, or I'm a this thing, or I'm a that thing, or whatever. I don't know what language they're supposed to use now. But very few people actually get offended by any of this stuff. It is the fear, the hypothetical fear of offending the other, that keeps us all trapped in this linguistic prison, living in a web of lies, rather than just speaking the truth clearly, truth that we can all basically perceive.
So obviously it is hilarious to call things gay. It always has been, and it always will be. It's like a fart joke. You may think it's immature or vulgar, etc., but it will never stop being funny.
What happened?
And Michael Knowles here does one of the best jobs I've ever seen of explaining in an eloquent way why it is okay to say things are gay. And I won't be so eloquent, but this is something that us guys do all the time. If you make a new friend as a guy, if you're not calling him gay within the first few times of meeting, then you guys probably aren't friends.
Buddy of mine is freaking out. He's like, dude, I don't know, if we're gonna share this bed, we should put some blankets and pillows in the middle of the bed. Just create an anti-gay structure, you know, just protect us from the gay. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, you know, or you could not fuck me. How about that? Is that? I'm a little nervous. You need to set up obstacles to not me in the night.
It's how guys break the ice and be stupid and make fun of each other. And when the gay jokes start coming in, you know he's a real one. And I honestly think that Graham and his friend, when they're not on camera, would be doing the same shit. But when they're on the podcast, they have to pretend that they're all offended and like they care about this issue because they don't want people to cancel them. And I understand, I'm really not even hating, but I will say it is a bit gay.
Gay!
Anyways, guys, find Ground News below. Go and support them. Support the channel. If you want to find my links, they'll also be down there. If you guys would like to subscribe to the channel, right here. And if you'd like to watch another one, right here. Till next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.